Hey there guys, John Campea here. Thanks for visiting my movie vlog as I give you my quick review of the brand new slasher horror film, Happy Death Day. Not very excited about this one considering I've had a streak of bad luck with these little low-budget horror films where they're talking about friend request or wish upon, or even if you want to include Death Note in that whole thing, not a good streak of bad horror movies. The premise of the film is fairly straightforward for any of you who have seen the trailers. This young college student named Tree, why her name is Tree, I have no idea, it's a stupid name. Anyway, this young college student named Tree, she's popular girl, she's an incredibly attractive girl on a college campus. She wakes up and it's her birthday. She goes through a series of events in her day, waking up after what she believes is a one-night stand, going back to her own, dorm room. A whole bunch of things happen. Then she goes to a party in the evening where she ends up getting murdered by a psychopath in a baby mask. At that point, the whole Groundhog Day thing kicks in. She wakes up after she's murdered. She wakes up again in the exact same spot, goes through all the exact same stuff. She thinks it's just deja vu. And then the evening ends once again with her getting murdered again. And then repeat. She wakes up the next day. Now she's freaking out. What's going on? And she finally figures out, you see this in the trailer, that for her to break this cycle, she needs to figure out who it is that murders her. Now, you will be forgiven if you saw the trailers to this and saw the title Happy Death Day, which I still think is a bad title, and you thought this movie looks like garbage. Because you know what? I looked at it and I said, this movie looks like garbage. And then I went to go see the movie. And for the first 10 to 15 minutes of the movie, I'm sitting there hating myself for even wasting my evening coming to watch it. But then the weird thing happens. After about 10 or 15 minutes into the movie gets into its rhythm. The movie gets into its flow, and really the personality of what this movie is all about and the DNA of the movie really starts to come to the forefront. And you start watching, and as the days start to repeat and all this kind of stuff, and you're finding this movie is a lot more clever than you thought it would be. It's more funny than you thought it would be. And it's kind of interesting, far more interesting than I thought it would be. And as it gets into that groove, you start to realize, oh, those painful first 10 or 15 minutes were kind of necessary to set up this other stuff. And now I understand why it's there as a part of the whole picture. The movie is actually carried very well by this actress who I've never heard of before, though I've seen her here and there in smaller parts, named Jessica Roth. She even had a little role to play in La La Land. She does a great job bringing me into this character, believing the nasty things about her, believing the change happening within her. It all felt pretty organic. Honestly, she kind of carries the movie, and I think if she didn't come across the way she did, if she didn't bring you in and have that type of charisma to bring you in, I don't know if Happy Death Day works the way it works, but she does it really well, and thus the film works. One of the other interesting elements of Happy Death Day that kind of makes it work is the fact that, yeah, it's a traditional slasher horror, but at the same time, it's a legit kind of crime mystery. You are trying to figure out who the killer is. And it's not just a side note. Like a lot of movies try to have figure out the mystery, but it's really just a side note. It's not important. And it doesn't get you hooked in as an audience member. I gotta admit, I'm watching this movie and I find myself taking mental notes too. I'm trying to figure out the mystery. I'm trying to figure out the whodunit just like the lead characters are. And on that level, it really works quite well. One of the other interesting little elements they put into that kind of breaks away from that standard Groundhog Day type of formula is that they suggest this in the trailer, and I won't go into details any more than they suggest in the trailer, but you find out that there are repercussions moving from day to day. Like as she starts to repeat the same day over and over and over again, there are some repercussions that follow her over. I'm not going to go into details on that, but it's just another interesting little element that they threw in there that kind of separates it and makes it stand out. Look, at the end of the day, is Happy Death Day a great movie? No, I'm certainly not going to say that. And maybe this has more to do with the fact that my expectations were so low, or the last 3 horror films I've seen have been so horrible. But I got to tell you, Happy Death Day was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And I actually legit found myself sitting there being entertained after about the first 10 or 15 minutes in the movie. But even then, like I said, I saw why they had the first 10 or 15 minutes in the movie. And by the end of the film, I left the movie smiling and satisfied. And I think a lot of you guys are going to be surprised by Happy Death Day. Again, don't blow this out of proportion. I'm not saying it's a magnificent movie, but if you're just looking for a fun little slasher horror film that's kind of worth your evening and have a good time watching at the movies, this movie could actually be it. But the big question here is, what do you think about Happy Death Day? Have you had a chance to see it yet? If so, jump into the comments section below and leave your thoughts. If you haven't seen it, what have your expectations been like? Have what I said kind of lined up with what you thought it was going to be, or is it totally different? Let me know your thoughts. Listen, guys, while you're here, take a second, click on the subscribe button, become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're following me on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter, simply at John Campea. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks so much for joining me, and until the next video, bye-bye.